though it is unknown where extraterrestrials are coming from. I believe that we in some small way have influenced their decision to come here. With the communications technology explosion of the 20th and 21st century, and the use of rockets and satellites in space, I'm reasonably certain that whatever intelligences exist in space have long heard of and been aware of us for quite some time. It is therefore reasonable to assume one or several messages transmitted from Earth were intercepted and understood by them. Perhaps even the message placed on the Voyager space probe.
太空朋友，您好，您吃饱未？
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
On June 26, 2010 at about 9:30 p.m., two brightly illuminated objects appeared in the sky over Raytown, Missouri. Little did I realize that this was a significant find, and I treated it as if though it had no informational value. 2.5 years later, I discovered how wrong I really was. Meanwhile, on the ground, I noticed that even the animals appeared to be uneasy. They seemed to sense the presence of something that neither they or I could see. And what I found the most strange about all of this was that every time I watched this video I could see something new. I could see movement of creatures who appeared to be bipedal, but I could only see their movement if I advanced the video a few frames at a time. This is what caused me to realize that they are in fact much faster than we are. I had no idea about the amount of information I was about to receive, or the journey I was about to experience. Doors were now opening that very few have ever encountered before, and I would be allowed, at the very least, to take a look inside. This video sat around for over 2 years. I showed it to a few people. They thought that this was nothing more than an aircraft. But I heard no noise and saw no aircraft body, only light. They convinced me that it was nothing out of the ordinary. But after seeing numerous UFOs in and around where I work and live, I found that hard to accept. So, I went back and looked at the video, over and over again. After looking at it again, I still didn't see anything in it that looked strange or unusual. At least, not until someone made a comment about my video and suggested that I take a serious look at the video myself before asking others to do so. But as I watched it in slow motion, I noticed what looked like objects moving around inside the sphere. At first, when I zoomed in on a few of the frames, all I could see were blocky images, but I noticed that a select few showed the creatures quite nicely. I feel that there is something else that I should mention, and that is the shape of the craft. Although it was round in appearance, when it shone light, in a few frames, it seemed to look like the shape of a human head. All of this started off innocently enough, with one picture. But then, it mushroomed into something I could have never fathomed. A discovery. A discovery so large in scale, I could never hope to explain, or understand it. Everything relating to extraterrestrials appeared somehow connected. At least, everything I've discovered, so far. I didn't know how to approach the subject, or who to talk to about it, so I decided to solicit help from someone who knew a little more about the subject than I. But after repeatedly trying to talk to others about this phenomena, I found that all I was getting from most was stonewalling or the runaround. I even went to different news outlets, but none were interested. Channel 41 here in Kansas City wouldn't even let me get past the front desk. Channel 9 KMBC did at least send a reporter to talk to me when I went to the station. But both times I talked to them, they determined that this wasn't news. I guess that I failed to see how an extraterrestrial craft flying in our atmosphere, with occupants, wasn't news. I couldn't see how a cloud formation, filled with a host of extraterrestrials, would not be considered news. Or show a craft which looks like it's producing a magnetic field. Why wouldn't someone consider it news? Well, perhaps it's not. But it is definitely information. And I intend to convey as much of this information as I possibly can, so that you can at least be aware of some of this and hopefully be informed. That way, I have satisfied my obligation in all of this. I was about to witness a lot more than I bargained for. What was happening here and now in the 21st century that would bring about such a revelation? With all of our technological wizardry, we stand here in the 21st century, with all of the electronic gadgets invented over the years. There are still many people who go without food. There are people who have no place to call home. People who are preyed upon by those who sit high, but are the lowest in society. There are many who have few clothes, clean drinking water, resources to feed themselves, have little to no education, or they are disenfranchised. While others sit in their homes, with their 103-inch, ultra-high-definition curved televisions, with literally hundreds of channels to entertain themselves. And yet, they never seem to see the big picture. We have lost our way. I believe this is why the extraterrestrials are revealing themselves more and more. They keep watching, in hopes of seeing us take a stand and finally get something right. To keep you from being frightened, they have elected others to educate and inform you. Many of you are looking for some form of ET disclosure. Some official in your government who will substantiate what I am telling you is real. That day will probably not come soon, but nevertheless, this is still your disclosure. I will show you they are here. They will tell you why. This unknown object was seen in the skies over Raytown, Missouri, for 3 days in a row. I noticed it moving in the same basic direction, but using a different orbit, for 3 nights in September of 2015. Since that time, I've lost all of the data that was stored on my computer. However, I was fortunate enough to have kept some of my information on other mediums. This video is part of the information that was thankfully saved. At first, I thought that the object could be only a reflection of the sun shining in the camera's lens, but after I noticed that the object was also at times behind the clouds, I realized that a reflection could not be the cause. One of the first things that I noticed about the object was that the light it seemed to be giving off appeared to be self-contained. Its shape was oblong, and it also appeared to be repelling the sun's rays. As it moved across the sky, I could notice that the sun's rays, relative to the object's position, seemed to change as if the object was intentionally attempting to push back the rays of the sun in the opposite direction. I will now speed up the video further, so that the object's movement and direction can be seen more clearly. Now, I will slow down the video and zoom in on the object. It should also be noted that this object could not, and I repeat, could not be seen with the naked eye. I could only see it on the monitor through the camera's lens. I realize that some of you are aware of some parts of my story, but I find it necessary to retell it for the sake of those who are completely unaware. Although I had captured several pictures in 2009 and possibly hundreds more in years past, something else had to connect or click in my head to get me to pay closer attention. The still photographs, although interesting and thought-provoking, still weren't enough to cause me to study this phenomena. It was going to require a lot more on the part of those who wanted me to study, understand, and focus in on this. So, because simple photographs weren't enough to do that, they began to allow me to see a different facet of movement by them. How did I get to this point? Well, a lot of things had to happen for me to begin to pay attention to what was going on. I started to realize that everything I had witnessed or was going to witness was something that had already been done in the past, perhaps a long, long time ago. But because I have no sense of history to know where I came from or where it is that I am going, I continually have to relearn some of the same things over and over again. That means that I have to be exposed to the same or similar things that my forefathers went through. Plus, perhaps, even a little bit more. So, when I finally became aware of these creatures' presence, I had to be made to understand and accept that what I was experiencing was real and necessary for my awakening. Things had to start to add up, or else neither I or anyone else was going to ever begin to understand any of this. In August of 2011, I took a series of photographs that, to me, tended to defy explanation. What was happening in these photos, I struggled to understand. At first, I thought that I was experiencing a camera malfunction, or a rapid depletion of my camera's batteries. At least that would help to explain the rest of the photos. But that wasn't the case. Even after replacing the batteries, I was still experiencing the same lines in most of my photos. Whether it was day or night, sunshine or cloudy day. For several days I was experiencing this. Even when I changed cameras, it didn't seem to make any difference. I tried to change my camera settings, and it did help somewhat, but after examining several of the photos, I started to believe that this was not the fault of my cameras, but something else was taking place. I'm sure that if I had only taken a few of these photos, they could have easily been dismissed. But I took well over 200 of these, each one of which was as confusing as the first. So, I decided to try to eliminate some of the possible causes of the lines in the photos. The first thing I did was to set the camera to auto. I then changed my location, and went to my backyard to reduce the amount of light that could be causing this. However, when I got to the back and took several photos, I still noticed similar lines in the photographs. First, I took random shots of areas in the backyard, where there was the least amount of light. What I couldn't understand is, if this was the result of motion blur because of shakiness, then why do some of the lines appear to have substance, or body? Next, I took a couple of pictures of the sky close to my home. These two pictures helped me to confirm, at least in my own mind, that this was both an alien and paranormal event taking place. But the next photograph caused me to believe, based on a universal understanding, that they, whoever they are, were displeased with me taking pictures at that time. But I felt that because I didn't go to their home, and they instead came to mind, I had a right to know just what this was. So I continued. The next thing I attempted to do was to gain a different perspective. So I climbed on my roof and briefly observed the area. Then I started taking pictures of the ground, trees, sky, and more pictures of the front and backyard. What I believe is important to note about all of this is that not all of the pictures had these lines in them, even if there was light in the area, or if there was little to no light near where the picture was taken. But what I was finding so amazing was the fact that they seemed to have the ability to make the bands of light into almost anything. After I came down from the roof, I decided to go inside and take some photographs. I seemed to be experiencing the same or similar results. First, I took a picture, looking at the entry stairwell. The light hanging from the ceiling seemed to have a focused beam going up to the top. Next, I went into our bedroom, and sat on the bed in total darkness and took these two pictures. Since I did not have the lights on, or have lights positioned in the area where the curved beam was concentrated, I was at my wits' end trying to explain how this was possible. The second picture was taken in the adjacent corner of the same room. I should also mention that there is no light mounted in this area of the ceiling either. So I asked myself, then where is this light coming from? I don't remember if I used a flash or not, but I believe that the use of a flash would still not explain the curved light's origins. If you look closely, you can see what looks like at least one set of eyes, looking back. Next, I went into the living room and took several pictures there. The one I am placing on display here is really hard to explain. I would like someone to explain to me how it is possible for a beam of concentrated light to be emitted from my neighbor's yard and be directed to and through the bay window in my living room and maintain the same consistency, shape, and size, then curve slightly as it pierces the glass, and then travels upward as if it had a predetermined destination in mind. How is that possible, or am I assuming too much? One would assume that based on what is being shown in the photo, that the statement alone would be considered illogical. Not to mention, highly improbable, if not impossible. It should also be mentioned that there appears to be a face, located in the upper pane of glass, above the beam of light, just floating there, looking inside. To be awake has little to do with what your eyes can see, or your ears can hear. It is more to do with changing your perception, so that you and I can see and witness the same thing, at the same time with very little contrast between us. It is the ability to allow the mind's eye to interpret and understand that which the eyes and ears cannot. Take some time and take a close look at these photos, because there is a lot to see. Although it is difficult to make out, and that is by design, there are many ETs and crafts almost everywhere in the photograph. The lines and patterns you see are there to break up and make it hard to see their outline or shape, but with a little patience and careful study, they can still be seen. On the 24th of July 2011, I was on my way to work, when suddenly, my vehicle was struck by lightning. The lightning bolt was so severe that a ball of fire hit my steering wheel and exploded. The light was so strong that it inadvertently turned my camera on and recorded the event. Or, at least that was my perception of the events at the time. But now I know better. There was something else at work. Someone was trying to get my attention, and by doing this, hoped that I would understand and perhaps convey a message to others. And part of that message was, your life is not promised. I could have been killed at that very moment. At that very moment, I should have been. So why wasn't I? I believe the answer was that they had so much more to show me. And because I was a willing participant in this, they allowed me to witness, at least from a distance, an entirely new world. After I got to work, I decided to take a couple of pictures through the window near my work area. I had no idea what I was taking a picture of, except to say that there were storm clouds forming in the west. Little did I realize that when I took these pictures home, I discovered something pretty amazing. I will allow you to take a look at these and formulate your own opinions about what this is. I already know the what, I just don't, at this point, understand the how, or why. Have you ever gone to the NASA High Definition Earth Viewing website and seen this message? Especially after noticing that just before the message appears they show you this. Or this. These images were captured by NASA, but unless you were watching at the time the object showed up on the screen, you would never have known about it. So, I will not pretend that they are just a figment of your and my imagination, an anomaly, an event caused by swamp gas, or some other outrageous explanation. I will call this what it is: a UFO, an unidentified flying or floating object. Unfortunately, it would take a movie, several days long, to show half of what I have. And an unbelievable amount of time to explain it. Needless to say, I have not even scratched the surface, and they have not left the planet, so I'm sure that there is plenty more to come. So, I will end this with some of the videos that were all captured in the same approximate area, here in Raytown, Missouri. Oh, and one more bit of information before I go. They also are responsible for storms, tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes, and pretty much every weather pattern you can imagine. Even the weird ones you are now experiencing. I don't believe that they are intentionally targeting people, but instead attempting to keep things moving, or correct the Earth's balance. Although they could also be thinning the herd, so to speak. But let us not forget that there are also others here, attempting to reacclimate the environment to suit their own agenda. So, I'll get back with you, and hopefully bring you more news on the extraterrestrial front. Until next time, I hope that you all will stay safe, find the peace you seek within, and take care of one another.